All right, welcome. Kofsky's Mortgages and Hoagies, episode 8. I have a very, very special guest with me today. She is a Gettysburg alumni. She is a health advocate, former school board president of Council Rock School District, and former Pennsylvania state representative, Wendi Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam.
Absolutely. I think that there's a little bit of a delay still, but we'll see if we can overcome that. So, as a fellow political science person, you studied that at Gettysburg, which I imagine is a very interesting place to study political science. Are there any stories that you could take us back to about that experience during your college career with so many, I guess, famous historical things taking place there?
Yes, well, technically, history major is the one of the most popular things. I have many friends who were history majors because there's so much history there. I mean, going to the battlefields, people travel from all over the country to do that, and we were in them every week. We'd go running through them, or go out to the battlefields for a break or to study. So it was a great place to learn. Really, the political science came because at one point I thought I might go to law school, but that didn't happen. So I was originally actually a theater major, and my father wasn't having it.
I didn't know that.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I was a theater major for a little bit, but kind of learned that to be, you know, really successful, you have to be multi-talented in that industry. So sometimes people are surprised when an actor can sing or dance, but really if you don't have many skills, you really don't have a shot. And I can't carry a tune for anything. So I kind of decided it was the end, but my father was like, you can't get a job being a theater major. You need to do something else. So I was a political science major, maybe going to go to law school, but I also took all the courses to sit for my CPA. And really, that's kind of what I pursued
Gotcha.
after I left college. But yes, Gettysburg is a historical place. There are lots of great ghost tours. So yeah, if people are into that,
Definitely outside of outside of my hobbies are the ghost tours for sure.
And a hoagie. My name is Adam. Come and get to know me. Kofsky's Mortgages, Hoagies, and Loans.
So it's safe to say that when you were at Gettysburg that you never had the ambition to run for any kind of political office. You were going to take that journey through law school, and then what kind of happened as that progressed?
by the time I was junior, senior, I was done with school and wanted to get out into the world and move on, and just didn't think I had it in me to go to law school. I think like a lot of people, I mean, I give a lot of credit to people who go on, get their master's and doctorate.
I agree. I think that, from me where I was at the end of my sophomore year, looking down the tunnel at 5 more years of school was just not something that was very appetizing to me.
But my question for you, because you've been in sales for a while now, how have you seen technology impact it since you started?
I used to have my little earpiece. Now I have my AirPods, but in the call center where, I started off calling leads and people would call in and it would ring through a queue, or we had TOs, turnover agents, that would call the leads, try to warm them up and then get them over to a loan officer. And, we had a very entry level kind of leads program where you could track simple things, phone numbers, maybe some notes and things like that. But there was no real, guidance as far as the CRM and what it does today and how it connects to, your emails and your phone and gives you notes and feedback and apps all your data and game plans. I mean, you essentially went from an Excel sheet with names and numbers to systems that guide you all throughout your day as a virtual assistant. It allows you to kind of take yourself out of a lot of those clerical tasks and focus really on what your job is at hand, even if you're an army of one at some points.
Yeah, that's great because I think that's some of the positive benefits AI can provide. And it's going to me, especially I'm at the sunset of my career, it's just interesting to see how it's going to go forward. It's been so dramatic in my lifetime. The changes, car phones, beepers, cell phones, computers, email, and it's in sales. It's how many people can you talk to? How fast can you talk to them? And find the people with the real need that you can help. And the more technology can help you do the clerical, the more time you can spend finding the right people so you can help. Ultimately your job is to help people sell house or get mortgages. And in my job, we were, get people some good health insurance. We did want to help people. It's just interesting.
Absolutely. I feel like what you use these new products and services for are going to make the biggest impact. Like a lot of times I'll take information that I'm working on myself or material I'm working on myself, and I'll paste it in there and say, hey, can you rewrite this to a third grade reading level? Or, hey, can you help me, rephrase this question to it, make it sound a little less aggressive or more endearing, things like that, to where it makes little tweaks, but overall trusting it to do research for you or to put together a presentation for you. It just hasn't really gotten to that point yet to where I feel comfortable letting it take the wheel. Like, for instance, in prepping for today, I have information that I know that I want to talk about, and I'm saying, hey, these are questions that I have for Wendi. Can you help make them more of a conversation, and highlight what areas that I should focus on if this is what I'm hoping to get from the conversation? And then it helps guide you in that aspect, but doesn't necessarily put together the full play-by-play for you for the podcast.
Yeah. We're at different ends of a career a little bit. But I hope it never does everything for people. I hope it does the base work and then you put yourself into it, right? That people still put themselves into it. But that's probably a common thought for somebody, in my age group, is there's things it's fine if it takes care of for you, but it's always good to have some personality from the people doing it.
When you're in your 30s and you're dealing with this stuff, that you need to learn how to do it or you're going to get left in the dust, where there's a certain point where maybe it's not important to start learning or keeping up with the technology because retirement's around the corner. Where for me, if I don't start learning all these things that have to do with AI, I'm going to get left behind and I'm going to fall to the bottom of my field.
Yes, agreed. And the people I talk to at my age, I keep telling people my next thing for 2027 is to take some classes on AI, because most of us are terrified of it. It's going to take over the world, kind of thing. And I don't want to be terrified. It's coming, and we have to learn it and learn how to be smart about it, have it be useful, and not be afraid.
Yeah, I make the joke that I need to apologize to my mom because, I meet people that are much younger than me, that a lot of the AI and the social media stuff are things that they grew up with and comes natural to them. And then there's certain functions that I need to actually go out of my way to learn, just like doing something on TikTok or Instagram that just comes very natural to them that I need to figure out. And then also the curve still exists on the other side because my mom and Fred have discovered doom scrolling where, all of a sudden my mom's like, how does it know that I want to see all of these things? And it just gives you what your interests are repeatedly. And you can sit there and just scroll on your phone forever and lose track of time, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So moving on to school board. When she took a step back a little bit from healthcare and were raising your family to get more involved with the school board. I remember as a kid that you were always very involved in the PTA and different things that were going on at the elementary school. But what actually pushed the needle to where you wanted to get involved on the next level?
So I always say everything started with the PTO. I kind of live by the motto of, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So intuitively, when my kids were young in elementary school and getting great benefits out of Churchville, and I was involved because I wanted to give back mostly. But it was also social for me. You meet other moms, you learn who your kids' friends are, all of those things were good. But I kind of stayed involved. After elementary school, a lot of moms drop out. And I kind of stayed involved in middle school and high school. There isn't much to do, but you actually do a little bit for the school, less for the kids. But you help them with some fairs and some different things. And I felt it was giving back to a school system that I thought had really benefited my kids. And pretty much what happened from there is the representative was retiring and leaving the school board. I didn't really understand that school board was a fully elected position, quite frankly. And people approached me and said, would you run? There's nobody running. And it wasn't, I think today, because school boards with COVID became such a hot spot, people kind of know, but this was 2008. And so he left in the middle of a term, and actually the current school board appointed, but then you'd have to run.
Speaking of the time frame, 2008, I think that a big thing that people don't realize, and we're going to get more into this as the conversation progresses as well, is that the people on the school board as an elected position are probably going to have a bit more influence over what actually happens with your pocketbook and the things around you that most people know or care to realize. You also chaired two committees while you were there, I believe. One was academics and one was finance. Can you go into a little bit about how they intersect and conflict, and how there's maybe a little rough waters there?
Yeah, there's just never enough money for everything you want to do. Just in life, in school board, in health insurance, and you always have to make choices. Keeping people's taxes down was important, but people also moved to Council Rock for Council Rock School District. So people want good schools, and it's just a balance. And we hit rough waters, I want to say, so there was a bit of a market crash in 07, 08 when I was coming in, but what happens in government is it's delayed. So government doesn't really feel that downturn until a few years later. So I want to say it was like 11, 12. My memory could be off, but it was a few years after I was on school board, and tax revenues were down and we were really having a hard time. And the biggest expense in school board is salaries. Second biggest expense is benefits. And we did something I'm proud of to this day, because the union said it was the first time. We brought the union in, we showed them all our books, showed them all our health insurance, told them, these are where things are, this is how much money is, this is what's happening, we need help. And they helped us. They helped us. They actually gave through a series of things, but they gave back a little bit. And but they had never been invited in early to see everything. So that was, we had a good relationship with them.
Because you think that should probably be something that's the norm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it wasn't just me. There's 9 people on a school board, but I think, I had learned over the years from managing people is it's much better when you're open and honest and say, here's the pros and here's the cons. And I'll be honest about why I don't want to do this. This is what I'm thinking. And, even in selling, I told a customer once, you don't want to buy 6 things right now. You only want to buy 1. Let's make sure it works right, and then we can buy more. I mean, that was kind of
right
who I was, and that's what I believed. And so anyway, that was the conflict. I did have in today's world, so it was always in the newspaper then. Now it would be online. But I had a couple of fun things, like the time I said, I think I was not a committee chair at this point, and we were debating over fixing an old truck or buying a new one, like a 30-year-old truck that we were using to help drive from school to do maintenance. And it was a tough year, and I said, I will not discuss anything else until we talk about the $1,000 to get 5th graders some softback book that the 5th grade teachers wanted. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not discussing it, and I'm not voting for it. If we can't give $1,000 for 5th graders to have these books, I don't care if they walk from school to school. I'm sorry. I didn't get on the school board to talk about fixing trucks. It was the culmination of all the time you spend on buildings and infrastructure and all that money it takes and everything. And everybody who gets on school board wants goods for students. They may not agree how to get there, but you don't do it. It's unpaid, and you run politically, so you put yourself out there. You really don't do it unless you care about kids.
Absolutely. So you said that they approached you about joining the school board or running for the school board. This seems to be a common theme with you, because I think that that was kind of the same way that you took the next step, is that our outgoing state rep had actually asked you to run. Can you tell me a little bit about what that conversation was like?
It was funny at the time. And it was December of 2017. I was still on the school board. I was working full time at a company called Health Advocate. But both things had started to run their course for me. I was on the school board for 10 years. I was like, new people need to take over. You know, when you're on that, which is a volunteer, really, even though it's elected, but it's volunteer. People go, oh, stay, we have one more thing. We have one more thing. Stay till we do one more thing. Then and then it never happens. That's my experience with most of my volunteer work. It's like, just stay a little bit longer and do this, and then you stay, and then, whatever. At any rate, yes, Scott Petrie, who was our rep in this area, I think, I'm going to say the number is 16 years, but he had been around quite a while, and I knew him from being on school board. He had come before Council Rock, and he was very involved with the school. He said, I've been looking around for someone. I'm taking another position, and I'm leaving in February. And I'm like, are you crazy? I ran for school board, but that's like 4 neighborhoods. You know what I mean? Like, compared to state rep. And honestly, even though I was a political science major, and I'm sure I learned it at Gettysburg, as they were very good, I had a whole life since I went to Gettysburg, and really all you ever know about is, and you only kind of know, but I did kind of pay attention to DC. I didn't know what was under state purview, and I didn't know a lot about them.
I'm very glad that that's where you took this real quick. I'm going to interject. Because you said, even as a political science major, that you always thought about DC, but you didn't think about what was on the state level. After you had this conversation with Petrie and decided to run, which was originally in a special election when he stepped aside, I got to attend either the first or second debate. And the one thing that I really took from it that I found very interesting and very frustrating was that about 90% of the questions that they started asking during the campaign, at the debates, and I'm sure when you were knocking doors, were all national topics, and they weren't state topics. So when you started running for that, especially with the political climate, let's say, did that political climate and that aspect make you want to more or less run in the position that Petrie asked you for? And how did it also impact you early on the campaign trail? Loaded question.
I would say the political climate didn't impact my decision to run. My decision was that the 2 things I was spending, my kids are in college, so they're, and the 2 things I was working on, my job at Health Advocate, which I loved, and I built, but the company had been sold a couple times. It was time for me to end. My school board were both coming to an end. And this felt like a fulfilling next step if it happened. And here's the thing, I had, at least from the people I've spoken to, maybe a unique, I was like, and if it doesn't happen? Because I'm a realist. You win and lose in sales calls. You win and lose mortgages, right? I could win or lose. I was not like, I have to get this position or I can't feed my family. I was like, I have to figure out work to do, but if I lose, it's okay. I'm gonna be me, if you will. I'm very unique, and I think I wish more people who ran for office could go with that attitude instead of the I have to win desperation.
Instead of trying to make it a career.
Yeah. Well, and yes, that, and like people said plenty, and we can talk a little more about this, plenty of very mean, hurtful things about me that I believe are not true. Plenty. But
yes,
I don't remember who they are. I don't remember what they are. I don't hold on to it, because I was kind of like, I will go and I will do this and I will give it my best shot. And if I win, I will work hard for the people and see what I can do. And if I lose, it's okay. I'm still me.
Yeah,
Anyway, it was
so I remember
the debate.
at the debate. So I remember being there, and I know exactly, what you're referring to. I don't remember exactly the way that the questions were asked, but I remember sitting there, thinking two things. One was, okay, why are we talking about things that are a part of the United States Constitution, that this is not up for debate, is not up for vote, has nothing to do with what this position holds? And then the second thing was, speaking of things that weren't true, they were asking you questions as if you were basically in that red Republican box, and they didn't even know who you were, because there were things that they were saying that had nothing to do with you. And I was sitting there like, this is someone with a background in healthcare. They don't know. This is someone who's coming from the school board. Education's the important topic. This is somebody who has experiences personally that I know do not line up with the question that you're asking, that is clearly somebody who did not do their research, but they were trying to put you in that box.
Yes, that happens. I used to say to people, if I vote no on something you want or yes on something you don't like, if you start with the question of why did you vote that way, I will give you all the time in the world and I will answer you completely. And I guarantee you, I will always have that information, because I read the bills and I looked at them and I had reasons for anything controversial. I made sure I had it, because you never knew when someone's going to ask you. The things you vote on that
Right.
everybody votes for because they're obvious, nobody asks you about those things. But yeah, I was like, I can talk about it. And you'd have people write to you and say, vote no, vote no, vote no. And then you'd vote yes. And I would have reasons. And I would go back to every one of those people. I'd have my email and I'd say, I'm sending you this. If you want to talk to me, here's my number. Call me. Now, as a state rep, remember, I only represented 65,000 people. And so imagine if you're a congressman or a U.S. senator, you have hundreds of thousands of people you represent. So you can't do that, just so I don't set up false expectations. But as a state rep, you can answer people. I mean, it's not that many. But anyway, the debate stuff was nerve-wracking, was scary. It was hard, but to your point, you have people there that support you. There were people that supported my opponent. To be honest, for a state rep, probably 5 people in the audience came there and didn't know who they were going to vote for. It's just not that many people. You actually said something super insightful, that your school board probably has a lot more impact on people day to day, like when people buy houses. School's important.
Yeah.
So who sits on the school board and what the school, important. Your township supervisors, when you buy a house, they make all the rules for your property, important. But most people only know about DC. They don't know about the people in between.
I know when you became the state rep and were sworn in, that I was running a business at the time that is no longer in existence, but ran it for 4 or 5 years. And I was running into an issue with one of the state departments. I reached out looking for guidance just because you were someone that I knew. You responded and said, Adam, this is actually what we do. When you're having issues with anything that has to do with the state and you're not getting the answers you need and you need to progress, whether it's your business or something else, this is what we're here for, to represent you. And even somebody who's more in tune with that, it was like mind baffling. Like, I should have known this, but I didn't. What are some things that a state rep does that you would recommend people get more in tune with and understand what your day-to-day job actually is, other than voting on bills?
Birth certificates right away. If you have trouble, you don't have your original, you have any trouble with any state department, PennDOT, road stuff. Now, people like to think that because you're the elected person, you can call PennDOT, make them fix a pothole. It doesn't work exactly like that. But we are the conduit to the general public for any of those state rules on state roads. If it's there's a lot of talk right now. Frankly, it's a very sensitive subject, but data centers. Whether the state lets them in,
Yep.
where they let them in, what rules they have, people should voice. That is a state issue, and that's a very popular one right now. But any state department, anytime you're looking up something and it says go to the state of Pennsylvania, you can call your state rep and they will help you with that. So anything that you look up that sends you to the, DCED in Pennsylvania or SNAP if you need benefits, or Medicaid, any of those things, you can actually walk in your state rep's office and talk to them or call them or email them. And I would say that the people that I know who are state reps, 99.9% of them will get back to you right away, and their staff.
So going back to the personal side, after, there was a special election, then there was a general election, and you actually got narrowly edged out in the special election. In the actual general election, you then won the rematch, let's call it. Now you get sworn in, you're going in for your first day as the state representative in Harrisburg. What is that realization? What is that like? What's the experience like walking into that building with that position?
You're very proud. And you're there. There are 203 reps. So you're not alone. You have other people. I guess I would say what I learned over time that I really didn't know walking in is I thought I was playing tennis, an individual tennis player, but I'm on a team. And the way government works, the way Harrisburg works, and from my experience, the way is they think you're playing football. They think they're calling the plays and your team's going to tell you what to do. Well, I had the purplest district in the state of Pennsylvania. So it's not in my personality. Let's start with that. Let's be honest, to be told how I'm going to vote or what I'm going to do. And I represent my district. And that was my job.
Yes.
In fact, to this day, I tell people, if you do not like the way your state rep voted, go look at their district, because they're voting with their people at home want. If they're not, they're not staying in the job. So you can,
and not only is our district for the state extremely purple, but for our U.S. Congressional district is also pretty much the most purple in the country, and that's something that Brian deals with as well, and another reason why he continues more often than the average congressman to get primaried by his party continually, because he's somebody who might not want to play football. He wants to play tennis, as you put it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and so that was a big learning curve, but I worked hard to build relationships. The other thing is, just like we've learned I feel like the internet has taught us all a lot more about how Washington bills get passed, because there's so much information out there. But Pennsylvania, a few people decide what bills come up, and you might think this is really important for your people back home. You really want this bill and you really worked on it. If leadership doesn't want it to come up, it doesn't come up. You can't bring a bill up on your own.
Speaking of bills that you help bring up, I believe that you authored a very important bill that passed in a landslide, if I'm not mistaken, during your time as state rep, the veterans burial.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people know, but for your Bucks County people or any Jersey people, Washington Crossing has a veterans cemetery, and they do a unknown soldier burial there the last Thursday of every month. So service announcement, if you're around and you have free time, you can look it up on their website. Everybody's welcome. And they usually get like 20 to 30 people. And volunteer veterans go and they play the pipes in the band, and they do the service, if you will. and they needed new uniforms because they wear very traditional things, and they needed a van. They sit in the van in the cold weather because they do it all year round. So they are providing the family for veterans who have no family at this service, and they needed some help getting this, and we were able to pass a bill and give them some finances to get some of those things.
That's amazing.
Just as a quick aside, because I think it might interest you, is the second, that Veterans Bill was very popular and it's very good, but the second most asked about bill actually passed right after I left, and my Frank Ferry ended up, who's a senator now, but he's a friend of mine. We served in the House together. He ended up as the prime author, but it was Porch Pirates. So everybody knows what Porch Pirates is. You get your packages stolen off your step. Quick story. We had somebody who shipped their uncle's remains from Colorado to their house. Someone stole them off their front porch, not knowing they were remains, thinking they were a box probably or whatever. And we couldn't prosecute the person who did it because there was no value. They didn't pay for the remains. So
that's terrible.
The way it had worked was, if you bought a $5 gizmo from Amazon, that was a misdemeanor or whatever because you stole it and it was only worth $5. If you sold $1,000 or $10,000, the crime went up. So we made it a minimum crime. So that was the second
That's fantastic
bill that I was involved. Yes, the district attorney, Matt Weintraub at the time, and I worked on it, and I worked very hard to try to get it through. And as soon as I left, it was one of the first things they did. I was like, but my friends were very nice and gave me a copy of the bill.
Very nice. Last on this topic, any piece of advice that you would give to somebody who has aspirations in political office?
Volunteer for a campaign. The actual working in the government and in the politics is something you can learn. It's very gratifying. You feel like you're doing good. Even the people I disagree with, everybody's working hard for what they believe is for the good of people. Again, 99% of the people, and that's what they do. The hard part is running. That's the mean part. That's when your kids are standing there and it says dishonest on the front of the TV and your face. That is the part that you have to learn how to deal with. And that's what I would tell you. Volunteer for a campaign for somebody you think is a worthy candidate, and knock doors and learn what they go through and learn how that part works. That is the much harder part to learn than the job.
So you represented the district, and now sadly you're going to be leaving the district. And a house that was very much a part of my childhood is listed for sale. Talk to me a little bit about your experience with the current real estate market in Bucks County, what you see from your side of being the seller of a listed property. What are some interesting things that have caught you by surprise?
2 houses away from us went up for sale. It was March or April, but I want to say it was April, and sold before the open house. Went up on Wednesday, was sold by Saturday for more than asking. In May, when we came home from Florida and we were deciding to sell our house, there was another house for sale, and that one did not have that experience. They ended up putting it up, then lowering it a little bit, and then it closed, I want to say it was probably on the market for 5 or 6 weeks. But the one that went up in a day and sold in a day, that we're like, okay, well, we're going to get the house up in June because people want to be in Council Rock. They want to move in before school. We have a 4-bedroom colonial house. It's for a family. We loved it. And that did not happen. And, we've lowered the price once and we're still on the market. We are lucky, knock on wood. We don't have to sell right now. If we don't sell till next spring, we don't sell till next spring. So I think the expected speed that you were hearing about in the spring of this year, we talked to an agent not in Bucks County, but in Montgomery County. A friend of mine talked to him. He sold 26 houses in the spring. None so far in the summer. So like the market just shifted, and the market doesn't tell you it's shifting, right? You probably know this. I don't know this, but like it shifts, and then everybody's still thinking it was like it was before. So the other thing for people who are selling at our age, so I've had the house since 1992. Yep. Yes, when I met Adam. Is that in 92, we drove around Bucks County looking at houses, and we'd find new things. I mean, there was the newspaper, you'd look in the newspaper, but you'd find a new Toll Brothers neighborhood or something you didn't know was there. Today,
Right.
everybody looking for a house has seen my house because it's online.
Yeah.
That's a little different.
Absolutely. And also I think that especially in this school district, that it's, for so long it was growing and growing and growing, that, and you might know the actual numbers better than I do, but I think for the first time over the last few years that you're seeing actually less kids coming into the school district. Is that attributed to, I guess, some of the scarcity of the houses that were in that previous market where they were flying, and maybe that's evened out a little bit now?
So our height was 12,000, and I want to say 700 or 800 kids in the district, and I believe it's still floating around 10,000. I'm not as close to it now as I was. It's in that 10,000 range. It was two factors when we looked at it right before I left school board. It was lack of turnover in housing at that point. That was 2018. So I'm 6 years out from that information, but the other thing was less kids per house. The number of children per house was going down as well. So I from what I've seen, that has stayed consistent for these past few years. Even people looking at our house, there's been a few people who have had 2 or 3 kids, but there's also been a lot of people without kids.
And going back to where we talked about AI in the beginning of the conversation, do you want to share with everyone how you went about your process of hiring your realtor?
Yes, I asked ChatGPT who sells the most houses in my zip code. And I called that realtor. And when I looked on his website, he sells millions of dollars worth of houses. He's clearly a very large realtor as far as volume. He handles a lot of volume. And I called the guy who sold the house in the spring in a day. And I did happen to meet someone else who I interviewed, and that was just more happenstance. And the guy who sells the most houses, who I've come to learn much more about, who I did hire, ChatGPT told me he was the number one. He called me back. The guy who sold the house 2 doors away never called me back. So for those of you in sales, if you get a call, you need to return it.
And turned out to be a great hire for you. Anytime you have a top 50 realtor in the United States listing your home is definitely a great position to be with. And he showed up personally, you said, which is amazing.
If I text him, he would be like your father. He gets immediately back to me. He might say, "Can I call you in 5?" But I can, he is that high responsiveness that you talked about your dad, and I know you provide to your customers. Like, he himself does it, and I'm like, Joe, it's okay. One of your people can call me. If it's important, I want to talk to him, I tell him. But there have been times like, oh, I just have a question. Can you have one of your people call me? It's okay. He calls me back, or he texts me. He's very, very, very
And
responsive.
that's amazing, especially given the amount of things that he has on his hands. I think that he's starting to do a coaching thing here shortly. He's all over social media. He does a ton of business, has a large team. So it's amazing that he's still that hands on. Before we get up out of here, there's one final thing that we have to do on this show. And you've definitely been in the area long enough to be able to answer this. We're going to ask for Wendi Thomas's top 5 hoagie spots. They don't have to be in order, and they don't have to be still in existence. You can even reach back into the past if you'd like to.
All right. Well, there was a long time when I think it's changed names now. That was very close to our house. That I thought was always good. Freshworks was always a go-to. Giovanni's is good, I think. Giovanni's is good. I feel like on your show you've talked about Wawa hoagies too.
Actually,
But I
not had a
wouldn't.
Wawa come up on the show, believe it or not, but we do have them down here.
I think when people think of their big traditional like turkey or Italian, that I wouldn't go to Wawa for that. But they do a roasted vegetable that is very good. But it's the bread, right? It's Amoroso's rolls, and that really make the hoagie, in my opinion. What are your top 5?
I will give a special shout out to my favorite one, my number one in the area where we're from, and that's Brownsville Road, Feasterville, Trevose, Roma's Italian Deli. If you've never been there, go get
Ooh.
yourself a real Italian hoagie. They are fantastic. Ask for Mike; he will take great care of you.
Wow, that's a
He
good
didn't pay me to say
recommendation.
all that either.
Well, I was gonna say, I usually am buying them for the kids. I'm not usually the one eating them. I will definitely check that out.
Yeah, check that out. So, all right, just a quick shout out to a few of the local places. This was a great conversation. I appreciate you putting up with some of the technical difficulties and the delay. I'm hoping when we get this over into the actual editing program that some of that will even out and take care of itself. I appreciate your time, and it was great speaking to you as always. Wendi, thank you so much for coming on the show.